turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher.
And welcome back. I'm Mike with the Turntable Teachers, and class is back in session here for another guest speaker episode here at AOA Studios. And if you are an artist or a content creator, make sure you hit us up. We offer plenty of services for video content, audio recording, podcasting, and so much more. Head to our website, www.aoastudios.org. And for this episode, I am joined by a very special guest. He made quite the trek to get out here, all the way from Ludlow, Massachusetts, coming from Western Mass, all the way to the North Shore of Massachusetts. And I am joined by Mikeyblackkk, or is now going by Blackbyrd, formerly Mikeyblackkk.
The artist formerly known as Mikeyblackkk. Yes.
And pleasure to see you, man.
Yeah,
pleasure
for having me.
Of course, man. No, this is absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
You were here, obviously, at AOA Studios, and here on the Turntable Teachers, making your debut. And
Long
dude,
time coming.
I know, right? We've
Yeah.
been talking about this for quite a long time.
Right.
How you been, man? What's going on?
Yeah, pretty good. Just working on the album.
Yeah.
Just in album mode.
Awesome.
So excited to put it out for everyone to hear it.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
I love it. I've heard it, obviously, and obviously the album's out now.
Yeah.
Where everyone can stream that on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your music. It's going to be linked in the description. I'm sure we'll play a track from it a little bit later on.
Perfect.
But yeah, so I want to get going and talk to you a little bit about your upbringing. This is the objective part of the episode where we get to know you and get a little bit of background. So obviously you grew up in Ludlow. And I know that like growing up, you were a huge fan of, rock music, and really Public Enemy was like who got you into rap, right?
Yeah,
like that was like the group,
absolutely.
the entity that got you in. I know you're a huge Linkin Park fan as well. Pink Floyd, the Byrds as well.
Birds,
Was that kind of like a part of like why the name changed as
yeah,
well?
definitely. It came from because I was a huge fan of the Birds since like I was a kid. Them and the Beatles,
Gotcha.
and just a lot of the music I was making is a lot more indie, a lot more, and so I wanted a name that like went with that.
Sure.
And also Blackbird is a name of a Beatles song, so it was like combine both of those elements.
Kind of just worked out
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
But then you're also a hip hop fan too, because I know you're a big Jay-Z guy, you're a big Kendrick guy, and of course
Right.
Public Enemy. So kind of take me back to like when you were growing up, because I know you also come from like a family of musicians and
Yeah.
artists as well. So talk to me a little bit about like your upbringing in music and like really where you started to like eventually once you got to becoming an artist yourself, like molding that sound. Like I know because there's so many, you're kind of grabbing from so many different influences.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk to me a little bit about that.
It definitely. My dad is a musician. He's been a musician his whole life. So he plays the drums. He's been in bands. He's played with the Temptations, the Four Tops,
No
all
way.
of them. Yeah. So I just grew up with music. Like ever since I can remember, music was playing. Brownstone, Stevie Wonder, all that. But like when I really started wanting to create music, I was like 8 or 9, and my dad showed me Public Enemy. He had the cassette tape of It Takes a Nation of Millions, and I heard that and it blew my mind because I never heard music that was that like political and had something to say.
Sure.
Sure. And like from that moment on, I felt like I was always tapped into like to what was going on. I started getting more into like Malcolm X and Martin and the Black Panthers because of that, and then also around the same time, he showed me the Beatles. So that's where that rock and rap divergence kind of comes. Because on one point, I loved like the lyrical, political shit. But then with the Beatles, it just really taught me like how great pop music could be and rock music could be.
I actually really applaud your dad. Shout out Pops. Shout out.
Shout out Rick Marshall, the GOAT. Yeah.
Because I love that he got you into a few different kinds of music early on, and he really like gave you quite a palette. And I think that that's super important to give a young kid at any age they're at.
Definitely.
Give them some variety in their life, whether it's through the arts or whether it's through like I've always said too. Like I know we're both athletes, and we'll get into that later. Or former athletes, I should say, and coaches. And we have a lot more in common than I think you and I even realize.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
As teachers and coaches and whatnot, but I really think that even as a young kid, like kids should be playing different kinds of sports. They shouldn't.
Right.
They should
Yeah,
never
yeah.
get sport specific early. You know what I mean? Like
No,
really
definitely.
before at minute high school. I even think in high school you should be able to.
Unless you're a superstar in one.
Right,
absolutely,
right.
yeah.
But even look at some like I've always said this, like superstar athletes like a Pat Connaughton, for example, who's a local guy around. He came from around here. I mean, he could have gone to the MLB. He's obviously playing in the NBA with the Bucks, and he was a great football player, and he played those sports almost throughout high school.
Right.
So it's like
'Cause playing one makes you better at others.
Sure.
because you can pick up things. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
So, like, do you feel that way with music, where it's like, you know, obviously your dad gave you all these different influences, different kind of things, and you just kind of were you able to kind of run with it and sort of like kind of pick from different like genres?
Yeah,
and
for
things like
sure. I mean, I've always felt that way. That like, I never was like a guy that was like, oh, I just like hip hop. I just like this or that. I always felt like great music was great music. So, to me, there was no difference between the Beatles and Biggie, because they just made great music.
They were
that
great.
I
They were
loved,
the
you know?
greats,
So
yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, because I think especially as a black kid coming from, you know, Massachusetts, it's like I think that's so great that you had all those different sort of
Right,
influences, and like I know you're a Pink Floyd fan too,
Yeah.
like so that I think that's awesome that, you know, your dad was able to give you so many different kinds of styles.
Yeah, nah.
And then when you were coming up and making your own music, like where did you really begin that? Like what was like the driving force for you? Because like when was the transition from basically being like a music fan to like, oh, okay, maybe I
musician.
can like actually try to be a musician too, like my pops.
So my boy Jabari, we went to high school together, and I had heard that he was just like producing. Like we hadn't seen him for like 6 months. We're like, yo, what's he doing? And I heard he was just making beats.
Yeah.
So I hit him up, and I'm like, yo, I've always wanted to rap, like, and we linked up, and his beats are amazing. He's still one of the best producers I know, and we just locked in, and I started making music like that. So it was just me and him for a while, just in like a little closet studio, and back then it was we were just making like boom bap, like Nas type songs and stuff, you know. But
So for you, like when you finally got started and you felt like, all right, like I actually have some talent here, because like I said, as a podcaster myself, like I was not good early on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, when was like the shift for you when you were like, okay, like I actually have some talent here and I can actually like really start to take this a little bit more seriously?
right, I think a lot of it was like just trial and error. We were just in the studio every day working, you know, and eventually after a couple months, like I made this song called "Sign Me, Kendrick." And it was just like a plea for Kendrick to sign me, and that was like the first song that I remember hearing that we played back, that like I would bump, that was my own song. So once I like did that and had the confidence, we made a project together, and I think that's when I was like, yeah, I'm gonna pursue this. Like,
Yeah.
This isn't just gonna be like a side hobby type shit.
Sure. No, 100%. And like, so one of the first times I heard you was when you sent me your project from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that was Manhattan, right?
Manhattan,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That I
yeah.
did the write up on, and that was when I first kind of got to know you, and obviously getting to know you through like Phoenix Rios
Right,
and all the
yeah,
guys
yeah.
at Paper City and things like that. So, talk to me about the Western Massachusetts scene, because I feel like when Massachusetts gets talked about in terms of music, Western Mass feels like it gets left out, and
Yeah, for sure.
I don't want to, and that's why Phoenix and I have had that conversation a lot, where it's like, you know, I think that was part of the reason why bringing him in like earlier on when we did, was to really trying to shine more of a light on the whole state versus just like Boston
area,
or
yeah,
even
yeah.
just like the North Shore area. So I think, I mean, there's a whole side of Massachusetts that I feel like no one talks about, and there's actually a lot of dope musicians
Yeah.
and artists coming out of that side. I mean, you got obviously Phoenix and Jonas and DK and Ishak Anor, who's he's in LA now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different musicians and artists and hip hop artists for sure that are doing awesome things from the Western Mass scene. So somebody that isn't too familiar about the Western Mass scene, take them through it. Like, what's it like out there in terms of like, and how is it, you know, I think maybe different, but also like, what's the necessary means to get it some more shine?
Right. I mean, I think our strongest thing in Western Mass is diversity. Like, not a lot of us sound the same. There's, you know, you got Jonas who can do anything really, but you know, he can
Yeah.
sing, he can rap. You got DK who's a singer.
Totally.
With me and Phoenix, who are more like the rapidy rappers and shit, and then Penny is another dope artist who's
Yep.
like very melodic. So Ish, like you said,
Yeah.
he does his thing with the R&B shit. So yeah, I think we just got a lot of talent that like has their own lane, and it's just gonna take someone to pop, I guess. Like,
Sure.
you know, someone to get that lucky break, because once one does, the dominoes will fall. 'Cause
Yeah.
we all fuck with each other, so you know, like when one goes on, we're gonna all go on.
Yeah. Does it feel like there's like a little bit of a community sort of? Is it community driven out there? Like
The
more
community
so?
is definitely building. Like,
Yeah.
when we first got into it, I feel like there was a lot of cliques. Like,
As there can be a lot in Massachusetts.
right, yeah. But it like, you know, it was like me and Jonas and Penny. We all had our like little like crew, and then other people had their crews, and it was kind of like, well, I'm not fucking with you. But now I feel like a lot of us are converging at the same spaces, and yeah, the community is really starting to build in the past couple of years. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, guys, like I said, I mean, I think the Western Mass scene is doing a lot of great things. So, I mean, if you are a fan of our show, you've probably seen a few of them on this show before. But definitely make sure you kind of give some of those artists their shine, because I think they deserve it. Especially Ish, man. I feel like I'm happy for him that he's really like taking that next step.
Yeah.
in his career is too. And
that's big.
So it's good for him, and I'm pumped for him. Yeah, man. So now I want to transition to the main lesson, which is where we talk about really the things that are going on in your life right now that are, and especially in music, that are really prominent. And of course, we got to talk about this new album called Shoegaze for Kids, Shoegaze for Black Kids.
Shoegaze for Black Kids.
Excuse me. Yeah. And so I'm curious, because obviously I know that the influence, that rock influence that you've had, and that alternative music influence that you had growing up, and now you're trying to transition it into this brand new project. And obviously, a lot of people don't know this. I think this is like not common knowledge that rock and roll music actually kind of did stem from the jazz and blues scene of African American culture in the 30s and 40s.
Right.
That ultimately led to the rock and roll scenes in the 50s and 60s and 70s. Yeah, 100%. So, you know, for you, like, what was, and I know you being a very socially conscious rapper as you've always been, and like you said, but Public Enemy having a lot of that influence for you. So what was like the idea going here with this type of album, like Shoegaze for Black Kids?
I mean, it definitely came from, I felt like my music, if you had listened to it before, it would be like, oh, he listens to Nas and J. Cole probably. And like, that's it. And I wanted to just introduce like more of my influences in there. And like when I started the album, this was the day before a protest for, I think it was George Floyd, and I was speaking at it, right?
Wow.
And the day before, I was out chilling, and there was this girl, and we were I was just like playing music, and I must have played Pink Floyd or something. She goes, oh, like, why are you playing this? You're like the whitest black kid I know. And I was like, yo, I'm literally about to be speaking at like at a protest tomorrow on some like Huey Newton shit. How am I the whitest black kid, you know? And like, so I just like, I went into it thinking like, as a kid from like, in Ludlow's a predominantly white town and shit.
Sure.
So this album was really like me taking something that's seen as white and kind of bringing it into like my own culture and making it me, you know? Like, it doesn't, me listening to rock music doesn't make me like white, or acting white, because at the end of the day, if a cop pulls me over and I'm playing My Bloody Valentine or J. Cole, they're probably gonna shoot me either way.
It's
know?
not gonna
you
matter.
Know, yeah. Like it's the color of the skin type shit.
Right.
So that's really like the main focus of that album, is me kind of going off and doing something that's not seen as very black, but keeping it black.
Understood. No, and I think that should hopefully try to inspire like more young black kids that like, hey, you don't have to just go into hip hop music,
right? Yeah,
like
definitely.
There's definitely different styles you can play with. And I think right now it's interesting because I feel like in the early 2000s there was this huge kind of rap rock sort of mix renaissance.
Definitely.
Linkin Park, who I know you're a huge fan of, one of your first concerts, right?
Yeah,
was Linkin Park.
This dude really is like Nardwuar.
And I know you're a huge Linkin Park fan, and I can see like the influence of Linkin Park in this type of album and this music. But even in 2023 right now, I almost feel as though that rock music kind of in general, especially in the mainstream, I feel like really took quite a lull, maybe in like 07, 08 area.
Definitely.
And now I feel like there's kind of this new renaissance of it almost. I mean, looking at even just a couple albums that just recently dropped, like, for example, Lil Yachty's Let's Start Here, with that really psychedelic rock style, which, by the way, I mean, anybody that hasn't listened to that album yet,
amazing.
Like, don't be who I like am and was like, oh, Lil Yachty, like, there's no way this album could be good. I heard it was good, and I'm like, wait, no chance. Freaking listen to this thing. Not only is it the best Lil Yachty album I've ever heard, but it's easily one of my favorite albums this year.
Definitely.
Which is crazy to say that he figured out that sound. And like, who knew that? Even I'm not even sure if he knew that psychedelic rock maybe what was kind of his sound this entire time. Yeah. And even just recently, I don't know if you've heard, but Slow Tie's new album Ugly came out, and that's all rock style. Now, granted, he's more of a UK artist, UK rap, but even still, like, bringing that influence into rock, I mean, bringing that rock influence into rap, like I feel like that hasn't really been a super prevalent thing in the mainstream for like quite a long time.
Nah,
And
definitely.
so was that something that was conscious on your mind coming into this album, or was that something that you really weren't paying much attention to?
It it was something that I started noticing as I was making the album. Because I mean, probably like you, I didn't listen to Yachty that much beforehand. You know,
I've never been a Yachty fan.
Yeah, nah, me neither. But yeah, it was just an idea I had, and then as I was like working on it, I was like, wow, I'm definitely not like on an island here. I mean, even Cardi with Whole Lotta Red, you know, was a big influence.
For sure.
So yeah, I think rock definitely hit a lull because it was everything just kind of sounded the same. You know, there was no like new way to go, and hip hop was really coming into its own.
Yeah.
And so I think like hip hop artists diving into rock now, and because I feel like with the Linkin Park and Korn and Limp Bizkit, that was like rock dudes doing rap music.
Sure.
Whereas this is like rap artists doing rock music. So
Right.
there's that influence, but it's different, you know.
And it's not that rap artists haven't tried, because
No,
Lil Wayne tried.
Yeah.
And
Lupe had a song on one of his albums that.
Yeah, but I mean for like a full-fledged project.
full-fledged
though.
project,
Like,
yeah.
Because I think there's definitely, like you said, I think there's definitely rap artists, hip-hop artists that have tried it for a song or two here and there. But when I'm talking like mainstream, like, okay, this is
biggest
like
rapper in the
this is
world,
like
yeah,
an
yeah.
attention, like this album's getting attention, like the Yachty album,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just not to keep exampling that album, but like obviously, you know, Wayne tried it, Cudi tried it, and it didn't really work either way for those guys.
Nah, I think the Cudi album Time will tell that was a really good album.
You think so?
Yeah.
Huh? Interesting. I disagree. I don't think he did it very well, and and same thing with Wayne. I don't think that either of them really were able to, I think, tap into like that style well enough.
I agree.
But
I agree with you.
I could be. It's
No,
all
I
subjective.
definitely agree with you because I don't like the Cudi album, but I do hear some of it in.
You think it'll age better than
Yeah.
That
I
makes
think there's
sense.
people, not me specifically, but I think there's definitely like the Uzis and Travis Scott that probably heard that album and were like, and I know like Andre 3000 loves that album. If he ever releases music, maybe that would be you know.
Well, Outkast, that's my like,
love
all-time
Outkast.
favorite.
That's my favorite rap group ever.
Oh, same. That's
Yeah.
literally, dude. So I have actually have an Outkast tattoo, or
for real?
Outkast inspired tattoo, and then I also like that's actually the entity that got me into hip hop when I was a kid.
There's that album.
Oh,
right there.
absolutely. No, I shit you not. That was like one of the first albums I ever bought, and I was obsessed with it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because I grew up on Luther Vandross, Marvin Gaye, Elton John, the Beatles. Like that was like what my mom was. Fleetwood Mac. Like that was what my mom
All
was
classics.
playing. Yeah. Like and it's funny because I think even Kenny G as well, who's just a saxophonist. And you know I was listening to a lot of R&B, soul, and then rock too. Like Collective Soul was big in my house. Third Eye Blind, right? But in terms of like the jazz and soul style music that I was hearing a lot. When I first heard that that Speakerboxxx Love Below album, it really blew my mind because I was like, oh my God, this is kind of like the same. Even at 9 years old, I could tell.
Yeah,
like,
you could tell the influences being picked.
It's the same influence, but this is completely a
Right,
different
it's like
thing.
their own
and
spin on it,
innovative
yeah.
and like fun. And it was like, I couldn't stop listening to it. And then I obviously went backwards just
Dived
given
into
our
it.
age.
Yeah.
Because,
Once I heard that, I asked for back when you bought CDs and shit.
Yeah.
I asked for Stankonia for Christmas. And my brother bought it for me, but I'll never forget. I got it back like the case was cracked. And I was like, what's going on? He goes, this shit's so good. I had to open it and listen to it, and I dropped it. But
love it.
Outkast is amazing.
So good. But yeah, no, in terms of like the like rap and rock album or mesh, but also like rock being influenced in now a little bit more in mainstream music, like do you think this is a trend that is going to stick around, or do you think this is kind of just like a fleeting sort of like blip in the the mainstream musical radar?
I think it'll definitely stick around. Even just broader, I think we're moving more towards an era in music where people listen to the artist more than the genre, you know?
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good call.
Like, so I think you're going to see a lot more experimenting with not even just rock, but maybe, you know, like someone, or even like To Pimp a Butterfly was just like a jazz album, funk, you know, like, so I think you're going to see a lot of things like that where just artists are just experimenting with multiple genres, which is a good thing because I don't think it's good for someone to get boxed into.
No, I don't think there's anything good that comes of that.
No,
you know
facts,
what I mean? And
yeah.
I think that in terms, again, I'll just bring it back to someone like a Lil Yachty, where, you know, if he had sort of stayed on the same trajectory he was at, I don't think he ever would have had an album like this. Let's Start Here.
Paying attention eventually.
Yeah, I mean, there's
look at like Lil Pump or someone like that. You know,
sure. I think that innovation and that experimental sort of aspect is so important when you're thinking about music and just any type of art, because, you know, it's not that anyone's really coming up with these new ideas. It's just like either the blending or recycling of some of these older ideas
and
that
put
can
your
then
own spin on it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I think in music, I feel like almost everything has kind of been done. It's just a matter of now, like,
but
like you said, putting some different spins on it. So it's something I definitely think is important, and I'm glad you're doing in your music. I want to continue talking about the album because I really want to get a nice deep dive into it. I want to talk about like the certain tracks and things like that. But first, it's time for a pop quiz.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
So in the pop quiz segment, it's going to be rapid fire questions. All right.
Okay.
You answer these questions to the best of your ability. They'll be easy at first, and then they're going to get progressively a little bit more challenging. So you ready for it?
I am. Yeah,
okay.
Let's do it.
Which is the better hip-hop song in general? Don't think too much about it. Just try to, one way or the other. Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst or by Kendrick, or Exhibit C by Jay Electronica. Which is the better hip-hop
Better hip-hop song? I'm going Exhibit C.
Okay.
I'm going Exhibit C.
Okay. Take me through how you would build a sandwich, all the way through the chips. Like what specific chips you put on a sandwich, like... Because I know you're a big chips guy in the sandwich.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm going with a Portuguese roll.
Okay.
You put mayonnaise on it, Italian dressing, Olive Garden Italian dressing, ham, cheese, salami, and then sour cream and onion chips.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I like it. I was thinking you were maybe going to say the regular Lay's chips, and I was like, it's a little
sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need to go basic, but
I like the sour cream aspect,
sour cream
especially
and
with
onions.
Everything that you just put on that sandwich. I feel like sour cream and onion chips goes really well. All right, so being a huge movie buff that you are, and obviously you're a massive Stanley Kubrick fan. Any young sort of film fan out there who has no idea who Stanley Kubrick is, what's a movie that would be like a staple for them to start with? Would you start them on like a classic like Doctor Strangelove or Clockwork Orange, or is there like a deeper cut that maybe is a little bit less known that you'd start people with? That's like my first part of this question.
So I feel like I would start with Clockwork Orange is wild, so I probably wouldn't start you with a Clockwork Orange. But I think Doctor Strangelove is a good start because it's funny. It has themes that still are like relevant today with nuclear war and all that. So I would definitely start with Doctor Strangelove. Yeah.
And then what would be like your Mount Rushmore of Stanley Kubrick films?
Doctor Strangelove, Space Odyssey, Clockwork Orange, and Spartacus.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
In your opinion, best film pre-2000 in your mind, best film post-2000?
Okay. Post-2000 is The Dark Knight, for sure.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
Great choice. Excellent choice.
Absolutely.
That Heath Ledger performance, literally killed him, but my God.
I feel like that's the first movie, like, when we were growing up. Like, I remember my dad talking about going to see Star Wars and just, like, remembering it. Yeah. Like, I remember going to see The Dark Knight. That was the first movie. Yeah.
Wild, man. That's one of my favorite movies, too, for sure.
And then before 2000, that covers a lot of ground.
It does.
I
know you like the oldies, right?
Yeah. I'm going to say Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
I'm going to say Blade Runner.
Blade Runner's good, too.
Yeah.
I haven't watched that in a while.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Blade Runner. Yeah.
Blade Runner? I like it. Awesome. All right. So, as someone who is a massive Cowboys fan, and I know you Cowboys fans, I'm not a huge fan of you Cowboy fans, unfortunately. I think a lot of you guys are very delusional. Every year you come in thinking it's your year.
Every year. I always say I'm the most loyal person ever because if I haven't given up on the Cowboys yet, I'm never going to give up on anyone else.
I love that. Yeah, ladies out there.
Yeah,
it's just, I don't know if you're single or not, but there you go. That's the one thing I don't know. But yeah, loyal guy right here.
I do have a girl. Shout out to Steph.
All right, Steph. So Steph, as you know, he's a loyal guy.
She knows. Come on.
Of course she knows. All right, so make a case. Now, I hate that I'm going to ask this, but I need to because I think it's going to be a really fun one.
Okay.
Make a case for a Cowboys Super Bowl run in 24. Like, how are they getting there? And if you like replace Jerry Jones, what changes are you making?
I was about to say we replace Jerry Jones and put anyone else in there that wants to win.
Great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Get rid of Mike McCarthy. Bring in John Harbaugh. Somehow get him out of.
There's some turmoil going on in Baltimore right now. You could maybe snag.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe John. You're talking about from Michigan.
From Michigan.
Right.
Yes,
I get them
yes.
confused.
No,
right.
I know. Yeah. So bring in Harbaugh, because I mean
Okay.
he turned the 49ers around.
He did.
Very quickly. Dak, I could take or leave, whatever.
I was about to say, like, as a quarterback, not to cut you off in the next question, but like as a quarterback, like, do you like, is Dak really the guy? And like,
I don't think so.
in your analysis of Dak, like,
yeah, my very amateur analysis, nah, 'cause he makes too many mistakes. He's like not cool under pressure at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he's won like one playoff game.
Interesting.
And
Okay. Yeah.
But if we have to stick with him, I think we can win with him with the right coaching too.
All right, so you're bringing in John Harbaugh, I'm an Ohio State guy, so I dislike John Harbaugh as well. So I already hate this makeup of this Cowboys team.
hate the Cowboys even more. Yeah, and then trade Zeke
Okay.
and keep Tony Pollard in there.
Like, I think that's smart. Even as a Buckeye, I can see. Test tells you that Zeke is just he's not who he was.
He's not the same. And see what you can get for him, like when you can still get some value for him, and then ride it out like that. I think good coaching will get us there. That's the main issue. It's been the issue since Jerry Jones fired Jimmy Johnson in like '93 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, definitely some clock issues for sure.
Yeah, see, our time management.
Management's definitely a problem.
Awful.
Okay, good to know. So as a high school coach yourself, and you coach wide receivers at Ludlow.
Yeah.
And what's like the one lyric? I know your players recite a lot of your lyrics. Like, what's the one lyric that like they recite the most in your opinion, or like that you notice them like reciting the most?
They play this song, A New Hope, off of like it was like a Star Wars themed mixtape that I had dropped called The Black Jedi, and they have it in like their warm ups. And I can't even remember the bar now. I'm so bad at remembering my old lyrics. But hold up, let me think. It's like, ask who I am, I'll get 97 descriptions. I always knew I would blow up like 9/11 predictions.
Ooh,
so,
shit.
yeah, it's hard. And I remember one of them came up to me one time like, yo, I always knew I would blow up like 9/11. I was like, bro, what are you talking about? He's like, it's a song lyric. I was like, yo, I'm way older than you. I don't listen to the same music. Like, get away from me. But it was actually my track. Yo, I didn't even pick up on it for like 2 days.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is that humbling for you? Like when the kids like?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And there's like in the album, I guess at the high school they do like morning announcements on film or whatever, and they were asking one of my kids like, yo, what's your favorite song? And they're like, A New Hope by Mikeyblackkk. So I put that little clip at the beginning of one of the songs. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's definitely dope to see like the kids are listening and shit. You know?
Yeah, and they're actually like into what you're doing.
Right.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, because I get the same like reaction sometimes too from a podcast. Like they think, oh, like I have kids walk up to me every so often being like, I love your podcast. It's awesome. And I'm like, how'd you even find it?
Yo,
like,
that's the thing. I don't know how they find it. Like they find me on Instagram or something, but no, it's definitely dope to see.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Last question for you in pop quiz. You're doing great, by the way.
Thank you.
I know that growing up, you would like, obviously you're a big comic book guy. So it's kind of a 2-part question. And with your friends, you used to like draw comic books as well, right?
Yeah.
So like, do you recall a comic that you and your friends like made that really stands out in your mind? And then off of that, like, what's like your kind of just favorite comic of all time, if or like series, if you could?
I remember like, you remember the Boondocks?
I do.
So they were like a comic strip.
Yep.
So I was trying to like draw like when I was like 4th or 5th grade, I was trying to draw like satire comics like that. So I actually had a comic called like Black Jesus or something, and it was just about Jesus being black and just like him doing black shit in Nazareth or whatever. And then the dude that created the Boondocks actually went on to create the show Black Jesus that was on Adult Swim.
You're like, yo, that was my idea.
Yeah, I always figured like, did this nigga have my house bugged or something? Yo, like. That's a little close to home. But yeah, that's the one that, like, I remember my dad reading that and he was like, yo, we got to get this shit. Like,
that's
sold.
Awesome.
Like, yeah.
That's awesome. I love it.
And then, what was my favorite?
Yeah, like favorite comic, like, of all time, if you could, or it could be a series too, if you have
I was a huge Batman fan. And
Same, I love Batman.
I love The Long Halloween.
Okay.
The graphic novel.
Yeah. 100%.
That's probably the one that I go, and Watchmen too.
Watchmen's dope.
Yeah.
Watchmen's dope as fuck.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, well, there's pop quiz, man. Great job. You
I've
killed
never been
it.
good at those. I'm glad I got to do that.
You got through them. Back to the main lesson. I want to talk about your album, Shoegaze for Black Kids. Big fan of it, man.
Thank you. I
think it's a
appreciate
great
it.
body of work, and there's a lot of really interesting like instrumental choices. I personally, my favorite song is that Insomniac track. I think that one's super dope. I think it's kind of dark. It's got a nice like ominous feeling to it.
That's kind of that old school like Mikeyblackkk feel to it too, with like a different type of instrumental on it. And shit. Yeah.
So like, talk to me about like I said, more or less get into like nitty gritty of the actual album, like how this process came to be. Like you had the idea, obviously, you know, where were you kind of getting the beats and the production for this thing? How did you start to craft the album? Like when did you decide? Because it's about 8 tracks, right?
Yeah.
8 tracks. Like when did you decide on the 8 tracks? Like all that, like talk to me through it. And I know obviously you have the single Rebel as well.
Yeah.
So give me some insight here.
So I kind of like, I had the concept and the name with like no beats and like really no idea how I was going to do it. Cause everyone I knew like produces hip hop.
Sure.
Wasn't really like into like shoegazy type shit. And then people I reached out to on the internet were more on the rock side that didn't have the hip hop element. So a lot of it was just digging through YouTube at first, trying to find beats to give to Jonas and shit, just to like show him the sound that I was looking for. And it was rough, yo. I'm not gonna lie. Like the first couple sessions, me and him were looking at each other like, yo, we might need to like come up with something different because this isn't gonna work out. And then we kind of locked in when we did Rebel and we did the first track White Noise, and then he kind of started getting like a feel for it, and he was able to like kind of start flipping some shoegaze samples and shit. So that's how we got Insomniac and Fubu, and all that. And then there were some people I locked in with on YouTube that made some of the other beats, but it was definitely a process. Like the most trouble I've ever had, like coming down with a sound, you know, because I had it in my head, but I didn't really know how to like
the execution part was tough.
And yeah, because there was really nothing that like I could show them that was like what I wanted to do, you know,
right,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like if the Yachty album had dropped a year earlier, it probably would have helped me a lot, you know? Like,
Sure. Yeah, that's just crazy, man. But yeah, for you though, like I think that's interesting because that must be like almost a frustrating type of thing at first too, to like feel like, okay, this is like what I want it to sound like, but I can't quite, like you said,
right? Because
like,
I knew the potential, but like it was not going there, you know. And
sure,
shout out to Jonas, because Jonas is a genius, and he was able to like really lock in with it.
Yeah, like patient with that process.
Very patient. Because there was like 3 or 4 sessions that we did that just the songs came out horrible, you know. But like, but yeah, definitely. But and you'll hear like his voices in the background of a lot of songs, just trying to give that band element of like multiple voices coming in, you know. So he was a huge part of the process.
I love that. And then you got a couple features on here. You got Penny, and there's also
then Gabe Gill, and Jonas.
So those are
the 3.
Awesome. And so what was it like? So I know you're really tight with Penny. Was that sort of just a very like organic song to create? Yeah.
So I had asked him to hop on a couple songs that didn't even make the cut.
Okay.
And it just didn't work out. And then I just happened to send him the song, like, yo, I did this song today. And he was like, yo, let me hop on that. So we just like we had to add an extra verse and shit to it. And he killed it. But yeah, anytime me and him collaborate, it's definitely like a very organic, like Future and Drake type shit. Like we just we're boys outside of like music, you know what I'm saying?
So that's helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Because then you guys know that like there's not as much pressure in the studio, because it's like, all right, even if we don't come up with something here,
if it don't work out, it's not like
hard feelings, but also like we can always kind of come back to the drawing board if we need to, if we feel like we want to tie things up. It must make that process easy.
Definitely. And it's the same with Jonas. I mean, we all go way back, you know.
Sure. Oh, that's great. What's your favorite track on the project?
I feel like, and this is dope, like when I made all of them, like that one was my favorite track at the time.
Okay.
But I think Love Lost is my favorite one.
Love Lost?
Yeah.
Mind if we play a clip for the people?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to be right back. We're going to play a song from Blackbyrd, a.k.a. formerly Mikeyblackk's new album, Shoegaze for Black Kids. This one is called Love Lost, and we will be right back.
Took the long way home, a time to think about you. And I could drive 1,000 miles, that's the thing about you. When it's time to face the music, I just sing about you. Always on my mind, I don't do a thing without you. Like summer rays, 500 summer days. If life's a movie, you could play this while you come of age. And we don't wanna keep it going while the other stays. I just want you in my head till I discover grace. And I'll give her the world if she would take it. Let her have my heart even though she could break it. Gotta take the chances, what's the chances that we make it? If you could read my thoughts, then you know that I won't fake it. And if you stay, I'm in new ways. It'll be forever, give or take a few days. And in these weeks, you know I've been 2 days. For like 2 days, I just shoegaze.
felt lost? It's for you.
Sing a song in a different time. Made it real, anyone could rhyme. I want you.
All right, and that was Love Lost, or a snippet of Love Lost by Blackbyrd, a.k.a. Mikeyblackkk, from the new album Shoegaze for Black Kids. That is linked in the description. It's also available on all streaming platforms. And we are back with Blackbyrd, a.k.a. Mikeyblackkk, and looking to, obviously, with this project, like, what's next for you? Like, obviously, like, are you looking to do more, like, promotionally with this project? Like, I know you're coming down here and talking about it, which is great. What else do you have planned in terms of, like, making sure that this reaches as many people as well, especially the youth? Because I feel like this is such a an album that could be obviously marketed to younger kids, of course, and there's like, I think there's really a message here of just, like, in general, like, I don't think it necessarily equates to, like, if you are black, you now need to do shoegaze. But I think the idea is, like, if you are
don't need to do this to be black.
Exactly.
Right,
or I think even a younger kid, just in general, no matter what their race is, I feel like could find figure out the theme of this and apply it to their own lives.
Definitely. We talked about that too. Like, even if it's like a kid who's into anime or some shit, or who's into comic books, like, it's okay. Like, just be you. As 100%. Long as you're being you, like, what, that's cliche, but, like,
but it's the truth.
It's the truth, yeah. And and so yeah, that's like the main message. And I mean, I'm definitely hitting the pavement with this one. I feel like with my past releases, I didn't do much press. I kind of just put it out, just see where it went. But I'm definitely getting it out to blogs, doing interviews with other people.
Great.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have some shows coming too. So
yeah, I was about to say, because, like, for you, have you performed, like, like, in general, like, throughout, like
not since COVID, but yeah.
Okay. So what do you think that'll be like for you once you hit the stage again? Like, is that going to be like almost like riding a bike, or is that going to be like almost a process?
I hope it's like riding a bike. I mean, for me, performing, like, I'm always hella nervous before I go on.
Sure.
Right when, like, the first bar hits, I'm like, yo, this is where I need to be. Like,
yeah.
And it's like an adrenaline rush.
I mean, disassociate, kind of block that,
exactly.
all that shit out.
I mean, it's a lot like playing sports and shit. Like,
right. Makes total sense.
But I mean, obviously, there's a lot more singing now involved than there would have been back in the day. So that'll be like a new thing to kind of conquer. And
totally.
But I mean, I look forward to it, and I know I can do it. So
yeah. No, definitely. I think the body work's good enough that I think you should do more with it, and, like, definitely make sure you push it out there and be able to perform it. So yeah, guys, make sure you follow. We'll do the socials thing at the end, but make sure you obviously follow him for any sort of tour dates and any shows that you might have coming up. And I want to transition slightly. We did talk a little bit about sports, and I want to kind of transition a little bit into what you do day to day, which is, like, very similar to what I do day to day, which is teaching and coaching. And so I know you and I are a little bit on different ends of the spectrum. You're in the elementary school still, right? Versus, like, I'm in the high school. So for you, like, I'm curious of, like, when and then obviously you coach high school, so, like, you actually kind of, in a weird way, you get to see sort of both ends of it. And when I was a lot younger, I actually did. A lot of people don't know this, but I taught preschool as well for a couple of years. Right when I was at Framingham State, there was a preschool on campus, and it was a work study, and I got to do that for like 3 years, and it was a great experience for me. It solidified that I actually didn't want to teach young kids, but also at the same time, I think it was good for me to, like, get into that. So for you as being, like, an educator, like, I'm curious, like, what do you think are, like, the things that really, like, some of the things that education is falling short with? Because I know that there's a huge issue right now in public education, and I'm curious for you, like, what are the things that you see day to day with your students that, like, you wish could maybe change, like, going forward, and to make their lives easier and also better?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is every district, but budget. I mean, Ludlow's going through a crazy, like, budget crisis right now. So, like, just losing teachers and, like, not having consistency. Like, that's the key thing, is consistency for the kids, especially at that age. Like, when there's a different pair or whatever in every couple of weeks, like, they can't get acclimated, so
Right.
it's gonna look like they're wilding out every day, but it's like
It's really because they don't have
yeah,
that routine.
yeah. You know, anyone would be. You know, like when you're out of your routine, I'm sure
100%.
shit goes wild. So yeah. I mean, that's it. It's just like, just pay the teachers. It could be so simple. I mean, at the higher levels, it's like parents trying to like tell you what to teach. You know, like I know that happens in Ludlow a lot too, where you know if you teach one thing, 50% of the parents are going to be mad, but if you teach the other thing, then the other half are going to be mad, you know, like,
right.
like let the teachers do their jobs, you know?
Sure. No, I completely concur with that. I
Yeah.
think that's great advice. Or at least that's, you know, I think a lot of us are like saying those things.
Yeah.
It's just nothing's really being done about them.
Yeah. I mean, there's like, I know there's a lot of talk, like teachers, like, or like not grooming kids, but like pulling kids away from their parents. And I mean, my thing is like, if your kid feels more comfortable with a teacher than you,
What's that
it's
saying?
time for mirror. It's time to look in the mirror. You know,
Fair,
and, you know,
absolutely. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen.
No,
But I don't buy the narrative. I just don't.
It's happening nationwide, and
that
our
kids are being groomed to become. I know this is more of a conservative like narrative talking point. That you know, kids are being groomed to be transgender, and kids are being groomed to. And we're all teaching them critical race theory and all these things that just really aren't happening.
No,
and I hope that you know the narrative switches back to in a different way where it's like, okay, you know. Maybe if you guys actually just walked into a class and like observe what was going on, like that would help people to understand what's going on. Because I would never. And here's the thing: like it's the same thing as like I don't know what happens day to day in a hospital, for example. Right. So it's like for me to go out there and say, "Oh, we need reforms in our hospitals because of X, Y, and Z." If I just made shit up or heard some talking point,
you're not on the ground floor of it anyway.
I don't know what's going on. So how would I know? So I feel like a lot of these people that are talking about educational reform in those ways don't even really understand or know what's going on.
No, definitely. And I mean, the people talking about like critical race theory, if you ask them what it is, they have no idea. Like they don't know. They're like, oh well, because they heard it on Fox News. It's all like it's just propaganda that gets. And I get it. Like people are worried about their kids, but
no, 100%.
I mean, you can't let the media twist your mind like that.
Yeah, and not to get
use some critical thinking, like
right.
You know,
not to get super political about it, but it's just the truth that like these sort of talking points are dangerous because then it affects people like you and me who. I would honestly say that I think 90% of teachers, maybe that's a little high, but you know, I think that there's I'll say the majority of teachers are overall doing the best that they can. And I don't, even in my own school, I can only speak from my own experience, but I don't know of any teacher that's really spewing anything that I would consider like, okay, that's a little like
I've never seen
either
it.
side,
either
right?
side. No,
I don't see that happening.
The bad teachers don't give a fuck about the kids. Like, you know, like, there's definitely that end that I see. But I definitely don't see anyone. Yeah.
And it's like anything else. Like, obviously there's bad teachers out there. Like, I will be the first to acknowledge that, yes, there are bad teachers. Like, just like there's bad cops, just like there's bad doctors. Like, it's a thing, right? But to sit here and.
I don't think it's systemic. Like,
no, I don't think there's any sort of systemic sort of problem in education outside of the fact that, like you were saying, like, budget is really important and it matters, you know, like that, those types of things, like in order to, you know, have programs in place for kids that, you know, places they can go after school and things they can be a part of, and even just to have the necessary materials and building structure and all that.
I mean, that's how you keep kids out of trouble is, you know, like after school programs and sports and all that. Like, I know I was a much better kid during football season when I had something to do and consequences if I did the wrong thing, you know.
Fair enough. I do actually want to talk about the coaching part of it, but I first want to ask you, like, what's like your favorite part? I know we talked a lot of negative things. I definitely want to. That shouldn't be all negative. Like, what's like a really positive thing for you, like in terms of like teaching? Like, what's like your favorite part of the job, and like, do you gain any inspiration musically, like from being with these kids at all? Like, maybe there isn't really much of a correlation, but curious for you, like if there is one, and then also just like what you enjoy most about like being in a school and being around kids.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely just like because I'm like one of the only guys like in that age group, so the kids definitely like connect with me and.
Just about the young boys and
yeah. So
which they need at that age,
right? That's definitely dope. Especially there's kids that like don't have a father figure or something. So
Sure.
like I'm that dude for them, kind of. In between the hours of 8:30 and 3. So,
No. I mean,
but,
we are kind of parents to them outside of it.
Yeah. So that's definitely dope. But I mean, like I don't get much influence from them in music, but I do get influence from the fact that I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I'm like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, all right, I need to make a fucking hit so I don't have to wake up in 3 months and go back to work and shit. Because I mean, eventually I do want to be like I want to make enough to just make a living off of music.
Oh, of course. I
mean, I've always said if I could make as much as I do teaching from music, I'd quit my job right now. Like, absolutely. I don't need to be Drake. I don't need to be a billionaire or nothing.
Yeah, you want to make an honest living.
I just want to, just make an honest living.
Yeah. But yeah, I think there's like a rewarding piece of that too, though, to be around the kids.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
That really, I'm sure is helpful.
I would be doing something else if I didn't like it, you know?
Sure,
like,
sure.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And then the coaching aspect of it too, like, what's that been like for you? Because I know, like, I was being like a former athlete, like it all kind of ends for all of us, like being a former high school basketball player and then playing a little bit of college basketball. I've been out of the actual game itself for 10 years, but I've been coaching for the last 10 years, and I just actually finished my last season. I'm not going back next year, but yeah, no, it's been a huge part of my identity. So for you though, like as a football coach, like, how has that sort of like shaped your like being as like a human being, and like also like supplements like what you do during the day teaching like younger kids? Yeah,
I mean, it's like I'm sure it was the same for you. It's the closest that you can get to like playing again. So that's like I loved football. So there was like a huge piece like missing, I feel like. And this is like the closest I'm gonna get to like. And I tried to tell the kids that I'm like, yo, I would do anything to just like get out there for one more game, So. I mean, it could be frustrating because it's kids, sometimes, but like, it's just like when you go back to when you were playing, like you hated practice, but you would go back and do it again if you wanted to, or if you could. Right. So yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. How'd you guys' season go this past fall?
It was rough. We had some injuries, but I mean, we won a few games down the stretch.
Good.
And we won our Thanksgiving game, which is like
that's always big.
Anyone cares about. Yeah. So
that's always
we shut them out in Thanksgiving. So
great.
That was a good way to go out.
Yeah. No, I think that like what you're saying is massively accurate. And then like I tell my kids that, like my players, that all the time, where it's like, you will one day look back, or you don't want to one day look back and being like, wow, like I wish I had enjoyed that a little bit more, or I wish I had taken that just a little bit more seriously, especially if they really love the sport. Like I tell them all the time, I'm like, yo, like, you don't want to wake up and have any regrets about your season after this. Like, you want to make sure that like you did everything you possibly could, left it out there, because like there's gonna be a point in time, like it ends for everybody. Yeah. It really does. And like unfortunately, like in athletics, and unfortunately, like I feel like we don't, it's hard because you try to tell these kids.
It's hard when you're in it to see that. Yeah,
you don't see it.
No,
I didn't see it.
No,
you probably didn't
not.
either.
Yeah, I was
so
just
it's
living
like
life. I thought I was but once the whistle blew on Thanksgiving, I was like, damn, I'm never gonna like put pads on again.
Sure. Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, like when I played my last high school game. It's funny. You don't think it's going to be your last game. Like a lot of the times, like I got very lucky. Like my senior year, we won the state championship for basketball, which was great. That was my last game as a player.
That's how you want to go out.
But I had assumed I was going to play college ball because I was in a position where I could, and then it ended up not working out once I got there. And so I wish that, even though I did cherish it a lot when I was in it, a lot of times I still wish I cherished it more,
definitely. I look back
and there's a lot to look back on, but. I think I really appreciate, because actually the last guest we just had on, Chis Capo, and if you guys missed that episode, make sure you go check that one out. Same thing, another teacher, basketball coach, but also like doing the music thing and very talented at it. So I think what's amazing is having the fact that there's become more of a younger male influx of teachers getting into the system. I think it's super important, like you said, from the standpoint of like, I think when a lot of us growing up.
I remember always thinking like, I wish there was especially in elementary school, like I wish there was a dude here. Yeah, it was all older women.
Right.
Not that that's a bad thing, but like you.
No, because they have that motherly instinct, and it's important. But you still want that male figure too.
Definitely,
it's important, and I like to see that more males are getting into the profession, and especially as coaching too, because like I think kids they do need mentors.
And you can make a difference. Like you never know, like for one kid, like you might be like that difference maker for him somehow, you know,
100%.
like, so yeah, that's like the rewarding part of it all.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
Man, I love it. Well, Mikey, this has been, or Blackbird, I should say. I keep calling Mikey Black. I'm gonna
It's all good. It's all good.
I'm gonna
I got
try
many
to
aliases. You know?
I'm gonna try to get used to that Blackbird, man. Well, this has been a phenomenal episode. This
Yeah,
has been
man, I
so
had so
great
much fun.
having you
Yeah.
down here, and I know you made quite the trip from Ludlow. So I really appreciate you coming
No,
down and coming
anytime,
through to the AOA
anytime.
studios on the Turntable Teachers. Lastly, before you go, we have the open response, and in the open response, we of course, for any of our longtime listeners and fans, know this is the dream song scenario. So this one's going to be really interesting, I think, for you.
Okay.
You get a song. It's a Blackbird song,
Yeah.
and it can be anyone on the song, dead or alive. And you get 3 artists and either 1 to 2 producers on
Okay.
this song, and it can be again anyone you want, blended however you want. You can get the hook and give the other artists verses. You can have someone do the hook and you get a verse, and 2 other people get the verse. You can do whatever you want and how to structure this song. But this is a Blackbird song, yours, and you get 1 to 2 producers and 3 guest artists, dead or alive, who is on that dream song. You take as much time
I
as you
bet.
need.
So I know Kanye's producing it,
Okay.
and Pharrell.
Okay.
I get 3.
And you get 3
3
artists.
features.
Yep.
All right. So I'm putting John Lennon on the chorus.
Ooh,
John
we've
Lennon on the
never
chorus.
got John Lennon in the
Really?
history of the show. We've never gotten John Lennon, to my
Interesting.
knowledge. I'd have to go back in the archives, but I don't remember anyone ever saying John Lennon. Okay, love it.
All right. I'm getting Johnny Marr from the Smiths to play a little guitar in the deep cut. And then I'm getting Tupac to do like an outro.
Whew.
It's gonna be a banger. It doesn't sound weird combination, but that's gonna be a banger. That's gonna be a banger.
Okay, well, you heard it here first, guys. Blackbird with production from Kanye West and Pharrell, featuring John Lennon, Tupac, and the Smiths. That would be a very interesting song.
We'll make it work though.
Make it work. Yeah, you
Yeah.
got to make it work,
Yeah.
man. I think with the genre blending that goes
Yeah,
on these
absolutely.
days,
Yeah,
could
yeah.
totally happen. Well, man, this has been a phenomenal
Man,
episode.
thanks for having me.
Of course, this has been so much fun. This was great. Now is the time to plug away. Obviously, you got the album, but plug away socials where people can find you, what you got going on. Let the people know.
It's Blackbyrd on all socials. BLACKBYRD. On Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Music. Find me there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And make sure that you guys stream the new album, Shoegaze for Black Kids,
Definitely.
out
Classic.
right now. It is linked in the description. And if you're a fan of Blackbird, a.k.a. Mikeyblackkk, and coming on to us for the first time, you can follow us at Turntable Teachers on Instagram, TikTok, and also head to our website, www.turntableteachers.com, for all the latest blogs, playlists, episodes, merch. We got it all up there. And of course, as I mentioned, we are at the brand new AOA Studios in Beverly, Massachusetts. Again, if you are a content creator, artist, musician, and you need audio recording, any sort of video and multimedia content, make sure you hit us up. Check out our website, www.aoastudios.org, and book your session today. As always, Mikey, thank you so much for
sir.
being here.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm Mike. This is Blackbird with the Turntable Teachers, and class is officially dismissed.
Turn,